But let's, of course, start with this big story where just a short while ago, the visiting Russian president has met with the Indian president, and these are some of the very first images of the Russian President Vladimir Putin meeting with the Indian President Draupadi Murmu at the Rashtrapati Bhavan, or the Presidential House. Now, the president is hosting a dinner in honor of the visiting Russian president. So the Russian President Vladimir Putin has made headlines during his visit to India. He has been in New Delhi for the 23rd Annual India-Russia Summit, and this has been his first visit to India since the Ukraine war began in 2022. Now, Putin said something that is going to have definitely caught the West's attention.
We are also seeing successful partnership in energy. Russia is a reliable supplier of oil, gas, coal, and everything that is required for the development of India's energy. We are ready to continue uninterrupted shipments of fuel for the fast-growing Indian economy.
Was this a direct challenge to the West, specifically the United States of America, because the words that Putin chose were uninterrupted supply of Russian energy? Now remember, the United States has been very keen to try and interrupt the supply of the Russian crude oil to India. Now, back in August, the American President Donald Trump had raised tariff rates on Indian exports to a whopping 50%. 25% of this was a form of punishment because India purchases oil from Russia. Now, Trump accused India of fueling the war in Ukraine by purchasing Russian crude oil. And now, Putin has said that Russia will continue with the uninterrupted supply of oil. During the meeting in New Delhi, Putin was also quick to point something else as well.
The consonance of the positions of the two countries has been confirmed. Russia and India pursue independent and autonomous foreign policies. We, along with supporters from BRICS, SCO, and from the states of world's majority, promote the processes of forming a fairer, more democratic, multipolar world order and advocate for the fundamental principles of international law enshrined in the UN Charter.
Now, Putin also said that both India and Russia should pursue independent and autonomous foreign policies, basically policies taken for the benefit of their own citizens and not at the whims of another nation. Putin then zeroed in on his point. He said that this had proven that both Russia and India were promoting a multipolar world. Now, the world has largely been bipolar or even unipolar since the end of the Second World War, and especially after the end of the Cold War. There were two big powers that emerged after the Second World War, the United States and the then Soviet Union. But after the fall of the USSR, it was a unipolar world. And in recent years, China has, of course, been trying to emerge as the world's second major pole. However, it has some distance to still go. But Washington clearly considers Beijing to be its biggest threat. The White House, interestingly, has released the national security strategy of the United States earlier today. And India apparently has been mentioned in 3 different places. And in all these 3 scenarios, India has been presented as a partner by the United States of America, an ally in its fight against China. But perhaps Washington is used to viewing its allies more as its vassals, because India has refused to toe the American line and has irked Trump, resulting in the brutal 50% tariff rates. And despite the punishment, India has maintained its course. It has continued to purchase Russian oil, and it has refused to do Washington's bidding. So at this point, what Putin said, a multipolar world order, is something that will have a lot of resonance in capitals across the West. All right, now joining us on the broadcast, we've got my colleague Susan Tehrani, who's joining us live from New York. So, Susan, tell us, how is the United States viewing the Modi-Putin meeting that's taken place in New Delhi?
Modi-Putin summit in New Delhi with a mix of frustration caution and strategic calculation. U.S. policy experts say the timing coming while Putin is escalating its war in Ukraine may not be helpful from Washington's perspective. It also signals to the United States that India won't easily bow to American pressure, especially after tariffs and pressure over Russian oil purchases. At the same time, U.S. officials are parsing the tone of the summit, the substance of any agreements, and how India balances its historic ties with Russia against growing cooperation with the United States and Western partners as well, while Washington continues to push for pressure on Moscow and seeks India's support for a peaceful resolution in Ukraine. It also recognizes Modi's emphasis on strategic autonomy.
And also, Susan, how do you see the mention of India in the U.S. National Security Report and also sending the fifth generation GE engines for Tejas and the waiver for Russian Lukoil in the current context?
In Washington's new national security strategy, India is no longer just a partner. It's the hinge on which two oceans turn. The text reads almost like a mapmaker's confession that the Indo-Pacific cannot be secured without New Delhi's weight. Its commerce, its navy, its quiet but decisive autonomy as well. And so the U.S. is offering the fifth generation GE engine for India's Tejas as a gesture of trust, even as it carves out a waiver for Russia's Lukoil, acknowledging India's complex energy diplomacy. So the U.S. is courting India not by forcing choices, but by widening its strategic runway, hoping that in a world of shifting power centers, New Delhi's path will arch closer to Washington's horizon.
And we also earlier spoke with Mr. Dav Zakheim, the former Under-Secretary of Defense in George W. Bush's administration and also currently a senior advisor at the Center for Strategic and International Studies. And this is what he had to say on this matter.
No, I think it's a reflection of what's been going on for a while, actually. Again, look, India has had long-term relations with Russia, including purchasing Russian military equipment, and yet look how much American military equipment it's buying. Transport aircraft, all kinds of materials, missiles and so on, and is buying some missiles from Russia. India clearly would like to see a multipolar world. That's its objective. The United States is not necessarily opposed to Indian capabilities and Indian power, if only because India and China, as I said, have a complex relationship, and to us, that's actually to the good. So yes, the reality is you've got multiple poles, but again, I think that everyone would recognize that at least at this moment, China and the United States are at one level, and then you have Europe, Russia, India at a somewhat lesser level, but clearly, in the case of India in particular, moving very fast up the chain in terms of its economy, in terms of its defense capabilities, and frankly, in terms of its diplomacy.
And he also spoke with Dr. Sergei Markov, who's a former spokesperson for the Russian President Vladimir Putin and a former member of the Russian parliament, the Duma. He's currently a political scientist, and this is what he had to say when he joined us live from Moscow. Listen in.
These countries like India and Russia and China, they are sovereign countries. And because of their sovereignty, they want to take part in formation of this new world. And this is one of the very important points of discussion for Modi and Putin.
Of our multifaceted relations with India on various fields. His Excellency Chairman is joining the world. Figures speak for themselves. Over a decade, aimed at further expanding.
For all the latest news, download the WION app and subscribe to our YouTube channel.